Last year, the hype was around the AFC West. This year, who could it be? The AFC East, the NFC East, the AFC North? Who's the best division in football going into the 2023 season? We'll talk about that here in the Locked On NFL podcast. We are your host, Chris Carter, and your boy Q. It's the Friday edition. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On NFL podcast. We're your host, Chris Carter, and your boy Q here on the Friday edition. We're from Locked On Steelers and Locked On Raiders, and we're breaking things down in the NFL on a Friday episode. And we're going to take a step back here, and we're not just going to look at teams. We're going to look at how the divisions are comprised going into this upcoming season. Last year, Q, it was your division, the AFC West with the Raiders, the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Broncos with Russell Wilson. Everyone thought that there was a chance that all four teams could make the playoffs. And two teams did. But the Chargers were ousted in maybe one of the craziest comebacks in wild card history in the NFL with the Jaguars. The Chiefs did win the Super Bowl, but the rest of the AFC West didn't live up to the hype. But this year, people are hyping up other divisions. The AFC East with Josh Allen and now Aaron Rodgers in there, and what's going to happen with the Patriots and the Dolphins with Tua coming back. The NFC East with the Eagles, the Cowboys trying to make moves, the Giants with their improvements, and Washington, well, they're just still kind of there. But there's still teams that are competing here. Who is the best division in football right now on paper as we go into 2023?
I mean, that's a really good question. I think there's an argument for multiple divisions. You mentioned the AFC East. You mentioned the NFC East. I think there's a slight question mark with both of those divisions, but I also think that they have really good arguments for being the best. I mean, I can look at the North and say maybe there's an argument there as well. But if you look at the AFC East, you got the Bills. Obviously, they're doing their thing. You got New England. I think they're going to be better now that Billy O'Brien is there. And I think that New England always is going to have a really good defense. They had a decent defense a season ago. They just had a piss poor offense. Miami, you have to throw the asterisks in there. As long as Tua's healthy, you feel like that they have a great shot and a good opportunity to make that run. I mean, it's just it's hard to say. And then the Jets, of course, they have Aaron Rodgers, and he was the belle of the ball, right? I mean, he's the guy that everyone wanted to get, and he was the one that the Jets threw it out there and wooed him until he got to New York. And so I'm going to go ahead and roll with the AFC East and think that that's going to be the toughest division in football. But Chris, I mean, you said it at the top. The AFC West was supposed to be that division a year ago, and I got all hyped up. I got excited, thought that, man, each one of these teams are going to beat each other up all year long. Who knows what's going to happen? They're all going to make the playoffs. It's going to be so compelling. And, yeah, all of a sudden, 17 games later, and two teams made the playoffs that you mentioned. Two didn't. Two are still trying to figure out what the hell they're doing, and two teams feel pretty good about themselves. So as much as it looks good on paper, we know early June, while OTAs are going on, you don't win games on paper and in June. So it's all about playing the games. But I do think that the AFC East has probably the best argument for the toughest division of football in 2023.
I think they have a decent argument there. I think the NFC East also has a decent argument there with Jalen Hurts coming back with the Eagles, though you've said that you think the Eagles are going to regress.
I think
you've been saying that.
Only reason I say that, though, is because they lost both their coordinators, right? Their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. One's in Arizona. One's now with the Colts as the head coaches. So that's, you got to give them credit for that. But they also lost a bunch of different players. And so I just feel like, free agency hit them. And, oh, by the way, the Super Bowl hangover is real. Right. I mean, that's a thing. I mean, that really is a thing. So that's why I question them. And then in the NFC East as well, I mean, I look at the Commanders. Is Sam Howell that guy? That's a big question mark for me. Do the Giants take a step with Daniel Jones, or is he still Daniel Jones? Right. I mean, or does Brian Daboll find a way to reinvent the wheel and really get the most out of him? I just think that one's going to be tough pill to swallow, that they're all four teams going to be really good teams. Because, look, Washington just about made the playoffs a year ago. So I can, I can see them being in that position, but it all depends on the quarterback play they get.
I hear you on that. There's potential there for that to happen. The Commanders were 8-1 last year. I look at a different division though. Okay. I think that the East could be up in there, but I don't believe in some of the other teams in the AFC East. I'm not sold that Aaron Rodgers is just going to magically fix the Jets. I think that they're still going to be on the struggle bus this year. I'm not sold that the Patriots are going to figure everything out just because Bill O'Brien is back with Mac Jones. Bill O'Brien isn't exactly someone that inspires enthusiasm in me when I see him there in the coaching ranks. Maybe Miami, but they're also unstable. I think the division to watch out for is the AFC North, because you still got the Bengals with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. You got the Ravens, who have a new offensive coordinator from Lamar Jackson.
I'm excited about them, by the way. I'm glad you brought up the Ravens. I'm super excited about them with Todd Monken. I think that they're going to be a really dangerous offense. Their defense is a little suspect, but who cares? That offense is going to be fun.
I think they're going to be fun. I think they're going to be fast. I think they're going to put up points, and they're going to be a team that catches a lot of people off guard. I also think the Steelers or the Browns could easily be that third team, and I think it's probably going to be the Steelers. The Steelers have never finished in fourth place in the AFC North in the history of the division. The Browns have kind of lived there, but I think that the Steelers, the additions they've made on defense, the rising of Kenny Pickett, I don't think Kenny Pickett's going to be in any MVP conversations or anything like that, but I do think he'll be able to do better than last year, and that'll be enough with a healthy TJ Watt. Remember, he missed 2 months last year, and they still found a way to win 9 games. I think that he doesn't miss 2 months this year, and with an easier schedule that doesn't have the Eagles and the Bills in succession this year, I think that they're going to be in a position to make a solid run with their record, get into the playoffs, and maybe we see the AFC North be the division that throws 3 teams in the playoffs like the NFC East did last year.
I could see that. I have 2 questions in the AFC North, and they're both with the third and the fourth place teams. I'm looking at Cleveland. Can Deshaun Watson take that next step? We know what Cleveland gave up for him. We saw him at moments last season look pretty good. Can he take that next step, right? Can he go into the offseason and go through OTAs, go through training camp, no worries about suspensions or anything, and can he be that dude? If he can, I can see that team being really good. And as you mentioned, Pittsburgh, and you cover Pittsburgh like a glove, with the additions that they made defensively, with Kenny Pickett now being a second-year guy, can he take that next step? But I think it's legit to ask the question still. I don't you know what I mean? I think it's fair to not say I assume they're going to be.
It's still a
right?
question. Yeah.
I think that they have 2 questions. So I can see the argument there for the AFC North. I just think that they have still a couple more questions than the other divisions that we talked about. But for every reason that you rolled out there, it does make sense.
I look at how things could line up for them, and I also look at their schedules this year. They play the AFC South as a division. They play the NFC West, and yes, that includes the Niners, but the Cardinals, the Rams. Right. I think that they, and the Seahawks. I'm not so certain if they're going to be, playing as well as they did last year.
There's Geno. Is Geno Smith that we knew from years ago, or is he the guy who guided them to the playoffs a year ago?
Right. And I think that those are going to be questions, but I think that this division is in a position with some of the matchups that they have this year to have some good runs from all 4 of their teams. And then it just depends on how bad does the division beat up on each other. Does anyone get swept out the division? Does anyone have those big losses, or do they split with each other? And then and then how do they fare against those other divisions that they're lined up with? But I think the AFC North, you have the AFC East as the
I'll roll with the AFC East. I'll roll with the AFC East, assuming, and this is a big assumption, that the Patriots are going to be a lot better with Billy O as their offensive coordinator, as opposed to a defensive coordinator who failed in Detroit and what's his name? I forget his name now. Pencil in his ear. Anyway, and then also
Matt Patricia.
Yeah, Matt Patricia. Thank you. And then Joe Judge, who was a special teams coordinator that turned head coach in New York. And obviously that didn't work out. I think Billy O, regardless of what you think about him as a coach, is a lot better than those 2 swinging Ds when it comes to being an offensive coordinator.
Absolutely. We'll talk about the worst divisions in football and what might be the biggest problems out here in just a minute on the Locked On NFL podcast. Don't go anywhere, but we'll be right back. But first, I want to talk to you guys about our great sponsors at FanDuel. FanDuel, of course, is the #1 sportsbook in America. With the NBA Finals going on right now, there's no better place to get in on the action. It's because right now, FanDuel is offering new customers a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's up to $2,500, $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet on FanDuel doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up today, and you can claim your no sweat first bet. Will Nikola Jokic get a triple double? Probably. He did it in game one, I think. Who will win the series? Looking like the Nuggets right now. Maybe that's an easy bet. Or will Jimmy Butler win Finals MVP and turn this around? All those things you can bet on. And you see Q saying no, it's not looking good for Miami. But that's all you can bet on all that on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Don't miss your shot at a no sweat first bet up to $2,500 when you join FanDuel today by going to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Back here on the Locked On NFL podcast, Chris Carter, your boy Q. Q, we talked about the best divisions. We slotted the AFC North and the AFC East as our best divisions in football. But who are going to be the worst divisions in football? I feel like mine is a gimme because they were the worst division in football last year, and that was the NFC South. Literally every single team had a losing record last year. It's hard to do. It's hard to do in the NFL. You at least somebody got to come out on top. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers made the playoffs by virtue of just them being 8-9 and everyone else being worse than that. But still, I don't see enough improvement from any of these teams. I think the Buccaneers are reeling from all the investments they made into the Tom Brady era. I think the Panthers are still recovering, and they're gonna be working with their new quarterback. I think the Saints, who knows what they're gonna be doing right now, they're still recovering from Sean Payton's departure. And the Falcons, everyone's turning things around. I just think that's why this year they're gonna be the worst division.
They have a good argument, right? I mean, the Saints went and made the move for Derek Carr. He could arguably be the best quarterback in the division right now, right? Baker Mayfield's in Tampa Bay. Bryce Young, he's obviously there in Carolina. And then you got Desmond Ridder in Atlanta. Desmond Ritter's a big question mark. Bryce Young, I like him, but he's a rookie. All right. You have Derek Carr. I know what Derek Carr brings to the table. Again, probably the best quarterback in that division there with New Orleans. And then Baker Mayfield. And we all know, and you know very well what Baker Mayfield brings to the table. And he's on what? Let's see. Cleveland, Carolina, Rams. He's on team 4 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, I mean, he's on team 4 for a reason. So I can see that argument. I just think that the Saints will be a better team because they have the most experienced quarterback and the better quarterback. Not that Derek Carr's won a lot of games, but I think he has a lot of familiarity there in New Orleans with Dennis Allen. He's got players that come over from the silver and black that he's very familiar with as well. And I think Bryce Young will have growing pains. I know Desmond Ridder's going to have growing pains. And then there's a big question mark on who the hell Baker Mayfield's going to be, and plus all those issues. So I could definitely see that division being in the conversation for the worst division in the NFL. But I'm going to roll with a different one. I'm going to roll with the NFC West. How about that? I'm going to talk about the Arizona Cardinals. No Kyler Murray. No DeAndre Hopkins. They took a $22 million dead cap hit instead of splitting up the dead cap amongst 2 years post June 1st. They said, that's all right. We'll take it all this year. To me, that screams that we're not trying to win. That screams to me that we're looking for that #1 spot. Talking about the draft pick, right? They're looking for that #1 spot in the 2024 draft, and it's only barely June, right? That's a problem to me, right? And then they got Jonathan Gannon there as a head coach, defensive-minded head coach. Kyler Murray's out for the majority of the year. What are they going to do? How are they going to turn that thing around, right? So I have a lot of questions there in Arizona. San Francisco, what's going to go on with the quarterback position? Is it going to be Brock Purdy? Is it going to be Trey Lance? Is it going to be Sam Darnold? I don't know. I think that they'll probably be the best team in that division. The Rams, they look like they're on a press reset, like they're on a video game and they're about to lose, so they're about to press reset and just start on over. I used to do that all the time, so I know what that move is like. You know, it's just I feel like that's who they are. And then Seattle, I think there's a big question mark there, right? They're trying to get back to old Seattle Seahawk ways, but is Geno Smith going to build off what he did last year, or is he going to be Geno Smith that we got used to and accustomed to throughout the course of his career? So I'm going to roll with the NFC West as the worst division in football in 2023. And I think there's still maybe a couple divisions that have question marks that they could probably be in that argument as well.
You talked about the West here. The Cardinals have $36.9 million in dead cap space. There are, though, 5 teams with more.
Damn.
The Carolina Panthers had $51.5 million in dead cap space. The Eagles,
but they had a bunch of cap space. Didn't they going into the offseason? Didn't they have a whole load of money?
They still have $27 million.
Yeah, there you go.
They were able to work with it, but still they have a lot of rebuilding they have to do with that cap space.
For sure.
The Eagles have $54.7 million in dead cap, but they have a foundation. And I think that's the thing here is when you have this much dead cap space like the Cardinals and you don't have a foundation, and I think the Panthers are in a similar boat here, it puts you in a very hard spot. The Packers have $57.1 million in dead cap, but they might have an interesting spot there with the players that are left over from Aaron Rodgers days, unless you think that they're not that good. That's a problem. But the top two teams that I was just talking about with that they loaded up to get their Super Bowl, and they did it.
Yeah.
The Los Angeles Rams, $74.2 million in dead cap space. And their caps, their open available cap space as we speak right now, Q, $1.4 million.
Yeah, that's nothing. You couldn't even sign me for that.
You can sign Chris Carter for $1.4 million. I will fill up your water bottle. I will take all the balls. I will run them out there. I will signal first down. I will clean the towels for $1.4 million a year. Locked on. I am sorry if they offer me a $1.4 million contract to be a ball boy, but I will do it. But anyways, in all seriousness, with the Rams, $74 million in dead cap space. The number one team, though, the Buccaneers, another team that they poured everything in to get Tom Brady. And I think this also spurs another conversation, Q. Is doing that worth it? If you get that one ring, it feels right?
Yes.
But if you
miss
no
argument, yes, because a Lombardi has a shelf life. Right? If you had a Lombardi in the last 3 or 4 years, yes, it's well worth it. Now, you got to get back on their horse and work it, and you're in a position like they're in right now. But man, Lombardi still look good.
If you miss Q.
Yeah, if you miss, then you suck.
You not only didn't capitalize, but then you set yourself back another however many years it's going to take to rebound financially from this. And I'm saying, like, if it pays off for you, great. I agree. If you win the Lombardi, it's worth it. But I'm saying the calculation there to be where they are, if they hadn't won their titles, I think the Cardinals are in a position like that with all the dead cap space that they put. They invested the money to go get it. They missed. Now they're going to have to rebuild. I think the Saints are coming out of that right now. They were in a position where they tried to take some shots with Sean Payton. And to me personally, I think Sean Payton just quit when he realized, this isn't going to work out because of all the money we've spent. We can't rebuild right now. We don't have assets. I need a jetpack to escape from here. And I think certain teams, they go through that. But I think that, the Buccaneers and the Rams, those fans, they'll be happy with their Super Bowl championship year that each of those teams got. If you calculate for all the teams that spend like that, you think of the Jaguars back in the 2017 era when they were just spending all the money to build up that team. And it was a really tough team, but they missed their shot.
No, they spent a lot of money last offseason. The Jaguars spent all that money. Remember, they made Christian Kirk a super high-paid wide receiver, and everybody said, for what? They made Zay Jones a super high-paid wide receiver for what? But it ended up working out. They made it to the playoffs, and so now they just got to build on that. So sometimes it works, but a lot of times, like you said, it doesn't. But if it does, I'll tell you right now, there's a big group of fans in Las Vegas called the Raider Nation that would love for the Raiders to spend a whole lot of money, go all the way in and win a Lombardi and say, all right, hey, that's cool for at least this year. Worry about the next couple years. But yeah, I mean, man, for some teams like the Raiders, they've been starving for so long. They'll take a 1 year run and win a Super Bowl and call it a day and be super excited and then say, all right, you got a few years to try to get back to that point.
I think sometimes it's also more than a few years because you look at it. But I feel you. If you're and again, it all depends on if you have that foundation. Because we're talking about like the Eagles right now. If the Eagles were to make some really aggressive moves with the group that they have, Jason Kelce ain't going to be around forever. I think Fletcher Cox is still there. He's not going to be like some of their core guys are about to retire. And if they wanted to win with those core guys and load up with those guys and do that, I get that. But if you're a team that you don't have it all together like some of these other teams out there, I think it is a mistake to load up that much in ways and trade that many draft picks. I think the Browns are in a position what they did for Deshaun Watson, the draft capital that they gave up. It's not because it's not just the money to me. It's also the draft picks you give up where you don't have a first round pick for 2 or 3 years. That stuff comes back to bite you because then you're not bringing in leaders and captains and top shelf players that play that. And so I think that's some of the fate that some of these other teams are going through in the NFC South and NFC West, and that's why we're talking about them like they're going to be the worst teams, the worst divisions this year. We skipped the AFC. Is the AFC just that good that maybe all their divisions are going to be highly competitive?
The AFC just has a lot of quarterbacks, man. They have a lot of really good quarterbacks. If you look at that whole conference and just say just rattle them off, like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. You got Joe Burrow, right? I mean, they're Justin Herbert. I mean, the list goes on and on. Tua Tagovailoa, if he's on, he's on. I mean, there's quarterbacks in that division or that conference that can get it done. Where you look at the NFC and you're like, oh yeah, not so much, right? I mean, there's dudes, there's absolute dudes in the AFC, and then you obviously, I don't know what any of the rookies are going to do, but you feel like, okay, at some point the rookies are going to step their game up, right? So there's that. Hell, look at Deshaun Watson. If he gets it done in Cleveland, I don't want to put Kenny Pickett in that conversation because I don't think he earned that yet, but I mean, he can end up turning into somebody. I just think that there's better arms in the AFC conference than there are right now in the NFC conference.
I hear you on that. We'll talk about who's going to be the most surprising division coming up, because we're talking about these divisions that we kind of are slating to be very good or very bad or anything like that. But there could be also some ones that catch us off guard. There's always one division that catches us off guard every year with some teams that pop up and are highly competitive. We'll talk about that here on the Locked On NFL podcast. Chris Carter, your boy Q, the Friday edition. We'll be right back. Back here on the Friday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast, Chris Carter, your boy Q. Q, if we're going to pick a division that's going to surprise everyone with just how good it is this year, what division is it going to be? Or is there a factor of a division that you think is going to catch us off guard here?
I have a division that intrigues me, and I know that kind of is cheating, and it's not really the question that you asked. So, I always skirt outside the lines, but I have a division that's very intriguing.
You just don't follow rules, Q. That's your problem.
AKA skirt outside the lines. That's what I do.
Skirting. Skirting outside the line is like, hey, I'll answer your question, but I'll also add in this. You just said no, forget your question. No,
I didn't. I said I'm intrigued. So I could be surprised and intrigued at the same time, like Future at the same damn time. So this is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the AFC South.
Sounds
and
like, like 2010.
I don't 11. Care. What does it matter? I don't care if it was from 88. That's cool. It's a good song. It is what it is. It was before. Well, anyway, don't let me get started.
Go ahead.
Anyway, I'm looking at the AFC South. I'm intrigued by that division, and this is why. There's so many young arms, right? I was just talking about the AFC conference and how many really good quarterbacks there are. Well, in the AFC South, and hell, I didn't bring up Trevor Lawrence. I should have. Trevor Lawrence is in the AFC South. Then you have Anthony Richardson in the AFC South. You have Will Levis in the AFC South, and you have CJ Stroud in the AFC South. Like, to think about Trevor Lawrence is the old dude on the block, right? And how long has he been in the league? For a quick second, right? I mean, he hasn't been in the league but a minute, but he's the veteran. He's the old guy on the block. And so I'm so intrigued by this division because, one, I don't think all those quarterbacks are going to be good. Like, think about it. That's 3 rookie quarterbacks in the same division.
Yeah. 3.
How often do we talk about a draft where 3 or 4 of the quarterbacks ended up being really good, right? So I don't think that all these guys are going to be successful, but, heading into the draft, I was very intrigued, and, I thought pretty highly of Anthony Richardson. I don't know what his ceiling is, but I think that his work ethic was one of those that had me like, man, maybe he is worth the flyer. Obviously, the Colts thought the same thing. They have Shane Steichen there as the head coach. He's the one who developed Jalen Hurts or helped develop Jalen Hurts with a very similar work ethic than Anthony Richardson has. So I'm excited about how the Colts develop. And plus, Chris, the Colts don't have big, high expectations this year to go far. So I think he can ease into, kind of learning the game, and he's going to take he's going to struggle a little bit, and then he's going to be good and see what happens and see how he develops. Will Levis, I have no idea about him. I wasn't high on him in the draft. He went in the second round. Tennessee drafted him. Are they going to move on from Ryan Tannehill? Are they going to pass the keys to the rookie? Or are they going to let him, go ahead and rock it? There's so many questions I have in Tennessee, and I think Mike Vrabel is a really good head coach. And, oh, by the way, Derrick Henry is still one of the best running backs in the league, obviously getting a little bit older. CJ Stroud, he's got the attitude and the, kind of the want to be great. I don't know if he's going to be great, but he's got the want to be great. And when I talked to him in Kansas City before the draft, just hearing his confidence in his voice. And it wasn't a cocky confidence, but it was a confidence of, I'm going to go in there and show everyone. I don't care about some whatever test they were doing. It wasn't the Wonderlic, but whatever we got caught up on, that little whatever test. He's like, I'm not worried about that. I'm a football player. So I'm intrigued by him. And then, of course, like I said, Trevor Lawrence, can the Jaguars, can they take that next step under Doug Peterson, who's a Super Bowl winning coach with the Philadelphia Eagles and got them into the playoffs his first year, as the head man there in Jacksonville. So I'm looking at that division. One, it may surprise us because we might actually see some really good teams be, playing and competing. Not that all of them are going to be great, but I mean, you might see some good, entertaining football. And then, it also intrigues me because I want to see what quarterback, especially out of those rookies, is going to develop into the better of the quarterbacks in that division. So there.
I hear you. I think the AFC South has the potential. I think they have the best upside as far as low expectations that could improve, because I think a lot of these other divisions have expectations. The Bengals were just in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Lamar Jackson's an established quarterback. The Steelers are the Steelers. They're always in the conversation for making the playoffs. The Browns, whatever. But you look at that division and there's expectations. The AFC East, the Dolphins just made the playoffs. The Bills, this is, I think, on the tail end of their window of probably this crew being a juggernaut.
Super Bowl last year, right?
The last 2 years, right.
I
think these were supposed to be their years. I think this might be the last shot that they have with this current crew. It's not about just Josh Allen; it's about the other guys around him. I don't think they can keep paying people the way they've been paying people for much longer, and they might have to retool, and that retooling might take them a year or two before they figure some things out for another big run. But I look at that. And I think, okay, the AFC East, there's expectations there. Yeah. AFC South, the AFC West, you got the Chiefs there. You got the Chargers with Herbert, those situations there. But the AFC South is the one division where it's like, man, like if none of y'all do nothing, no one will be surprised. Like I just look at I would not be shocked if the Jaguars win the division again at 9-8, just because that division could. Projects to be so low. And like you said, young quarterbacks can often flip things around. Trevor Lawrence did that for the Jaguars a bit last year. I don't know what's going to happen with the Tennessee Titans. Will Levis hasn't looked great in OTAs from the parts that I've seen. I think that they're a team that they needed a lot more pieces than just a quarterback to fix what they had going on last year. The Colts, I think Anthony Richardson, like you said, he can be a very interesting talent. I don't know if he's carry a bad roster talent type of guy. And that's what the question I have for the Colts. Same thing for CJ Stroud and the Texans. I think that both of them are just going to be in overwhelmingly tough situations to quarterback their way out of. And that's going to be.
It could be fun to watch them grow, though. You know what I mean? Like just see them go out there and compete and see what they look like. So that's why, I mean, I'll definitely pay attention to those games just to see those guys go out there and compete.
I hear you, and I'm gonna tune into all the games. Kidding me? I love football. I'm trying to keep up with everybody in their progress. I wonder if the AFC South, if one of those extra teams, like if the Jaguars hold serve, they win 9-10 games, that they're fine. They kind of lived up to their expectations. But if one of those other teams flips their year around, we're talking about the AFC South like, whoa, that's not a pushover division after all. And I think that's why I think that they could be the most surprising division, is because their floor is so low as a division that they could jump off of it very easily. Whereas, like, if next year, if two teams make it out of the AFC North, everyone's going to be like, well, that's normal. That was expected. If two teams make it out of the AFC East, I feel like everyone's going to be like, well, duh. I think that's the situation that they could be in. So I feel you on the AFC South being a team that could, or being a division, that could surprise people here. Is there a team? What is the most? Okay, let's go over our 8 division winners right here from last year. Bills in the East, AFC East, Bengals in the AFC North, Jaguars in the AFC South, Chiefs in the AFC West, Eagles in the NFC East, Vikings in the NFC North, Buccaneers in the NFC South, Niners in the NFC West. 8 division winners I just named you. I'm throwing out the Eagles because I know you're going to say them when I ask you this question. Which team is most likely to not be champion of their division again next year? If you had to pick of the 7 teams, and I know because you could easily say Eagles, because we always talk about how the NFC East doesn't have repeat winners. Right. It's just a thing. Now, an easy answer could be the Vikings, but do you believe that much in Dan Campbell or Jordan Love or Justin Fields?
No. No, I go with the AFC North. I'll go with that division because I know the Bengals
Ooh.
won it, but I think that the the Baltimore Ravens will be a lot better in 2023. I think Todd Monken and that offense is really going to be a lot better than what we've seen from Lamar Jackson and company for the longest. So, and you mentioned before, and again, very well, I don't have to tell you that Pittsburgh's done a lot of additions to that defense. If you have a healthy TJ Watt all throughout the season, now I never like banking on if a guy is going to be healthy, but if he's going to be healthy throughout the course of the season, phenomenal, as you know. So I think that division is really up for grabs, and the Bengals are going to have to continue to work hard to keep that stranglehold on the division. And again, I think that's one that can fluctuate from year to year. So I'll roll with the AFC North.
I feel you on that. The AFC North could be that. The Bengals, they've been on top for a bit. They've also been fairly healthy for a bit. Joe Burrow the last 2 years has avoided the major injuries. I think that they've been able to go there. And the AFC North, it's just a division where they beat up on each other. The Ravens, with their backup quarterback, almost took out the Bengals in the wild card round. The Steelers, with Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett, split with the Bengals, and both games were 1-score games last year. I could totally see that being a thing where the AFC North becomes a division that flips. If I was to answer my own question and just looking at all the divisions, I think I would go with the NFC South, even though that feels like a punk move because all the teams are so bad. I feel like someone could just end up on top just because they were the least bad. And maybe that's the Saints this year with Derek Carr. Maybe he rights the ship just enough. They're not going to be a juggernaut. I think they get bounced.
They've got to be the leaders in the clubhouse for the division, right? They've got to be.
Exactly.
Their quarterback's the most accomplished quarterback that they got, even though Baker Mayfield did lead the Browns to the playoffs. So there's that.
He did lead the Browns to the playoffs 3 years ago. And that could be
the playoffs twice.
And that's the thing. He's been a leader, and I think that there's still remnants on this Saints roster that could be competitive, and that's where I think things could get interesting there. So I got a new division winner in the Saints in the South. You have a new division winner in the Ravens or the Steelers in the North. We've got a lot of division talk over this episode. So I'm pretty sure
the NFC East that might be our first team off top, but you took them away from me, so I couldn't say.
Because I knew you'd go there. I know you, Q. I know you were like inside and out.
Well, if you just know the NFC East, you know that nobody ever repeats in the NFC East. So
that's what I literally said on the show.
I know, but that's fact. It's not like it's a Q fact. That's a fact.
Right. And I knew you were going to go there, so I stopped you. So there you go. We had to give our listeners and viewers content here. If I just gave you the easy answer, you take that, and we wouldn't be arguing right now. So there, haha.
All good. It's all good.
Anyways.
That's how you are.
Anyways, yes, it is how I am. I'm Chris Carter. He's your boy Q. We're of Locked On Steelers and Locked On Raiders, and this is the Locked On NFL podcast, the Friday edition. Thanks so much for checking us out, whether it was on your favorite podcasting app or on YouTube. We appreciate all of our listeners and viewers. Q, let people know I can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Just check me out on Twitter. It's the simplest way to find me, at your boy Q254. I tweet out the link to Locked On Raiders, Locked On Bets. It's all out there. Locked On NFL, of course. Anything I do, you can find me on Twitter at your boy Q254. How about you, Chris?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. You can also read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, where I cover all things Pitt athletics. You can also find my show, just like you find Q's show, and this show, the Locked On Steelers podcast, Locked On Raiders podcast, and Locked On NFL, wherever your favorite podcasting app is, or on YouTube. Thanks again, everybody. We'll be back next week breaking things down in the NFL after OTA is complete, and we get ready for all the teams to head into minicamp.